Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hi, how is everyone doing? Welcome to the Empower Her Talk Show live here on AOC, who I want to thank for allowing me to do this show here. I want to thank LUS and Cox Cable and the six surrounding parishes that gives me this opportunity every Thursday to come hang out with you guys. As you know, I am Coach Salita and I have been on this whirlwind of activities, things happening. Excuse me. I want to let you know that this show is underwritten. I guess that's how you have to say it. Underwritten by the Vita One LLC. Okay. Um, and I will definitely be adding those to my what's the name at the end. I have to add special things to those. I have to switch all of that out. So I'm glad I'm here. Um, a lot's been going on, and a lot's been happening, and look, I'm just trying to find a space to calm down. Of all people, let me tell you something. We guys, us coaches, no matter what kind of coach you are, a therapist, mentor, whatever you are, we all need some rest. Okay, let me say that right now. We all need to rest. We all need to take time out. And I haven't been doing a very good job at doing that. Okay, so I'm trying not to add more stuff onto my to-do list, right? So I got some stuff coming down the pipe, but I gotta stop because I can keep going on and on and on and on about things, and I have to stop. Um, so tonight I want to share something with you, and I want also to tell you like our Rooted and Rising. Remember, I told you guys about the Rooted and Rising radio and all that. My Rooted and Rising conversation on Substack. Well, today I wanted to kind of reiterate or kind of talk about some of the things um, that some points I made on the Substack podcast we do, because you can go and check out our podcast on Substack. And we're in a series now where we're talking about the American emotional decline. And this one really hit me. All of them hit me because when I'm writing, sometimes I have this method I do. I write stuff, but I don't go back and read it. Okay. I can do these shows, but I don't go back and literally watch them. I do my podcast, and I don't just automatically go back and listen to them. I just don't. But when I do, because it's not that I don't do it forever, but when I do, I fascinate myself. Like, did I say that? Did I write that? So I get fascinated by the things that I say and do, right? So today's show, we were talking about the emotional. Like I said, the series is called the American emotional decline, right? Um, and this one today really kind of kicked in and really hit me. Um, because I thought that it would be important to talk about. So this one is called the loneliness epidemic. Okay. And it has two sides to it. It has two versions of it, but it's all gonna come together. And I said, you know what? I really thought that, do I really want to talk about that? Or, would that be really something I really want to dig into? Um, but I thought, yes, it is something I need to dig into. So I think tonight's show, and we're going to talk about this, and if we have room left over, we'll go back into the book so that we can finish out that book and go from there. Okay, so um, let's do this. Let's do this. Um, so let me go here real quick, and okay. And I want to, there we go. Okay. So we're going to talk. And again, you can go to my Substack and listen to the same what we're talking about tonight. I try to kind of keep it going. I try to keep my topics kind of inlaid whenever I do the radio, the podcast, and the radio show on, like I do the radio show on Saturday mornings, and I try to do my podcast Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but that doesn't always happen. So I wound up, I didn't do one Wednesday, so I did one today. So we're gonna talk um, a little bit. I didn't realize how much it was that I wrote, but I think it's important that we definitely talk about it, if nothing else. Okay, so let's see what we got going on here, real quick. I'm trying to make sure I get to the right point here. Um, and when I do these, when I actually do these, I want to make sure that we're getting the whole picture, because it's very important that we do get the whole picture of what's being said and how we we actually see things. And I love to ask questions. You know, you guys, I'm a question person. A coach usually asks a lot of questions. So definitely want to go ahead and talk to you, to get this out to you. Okay. So let's see here. Let's do this because I don't have my tripod with me right now. So okay. 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 So um how do I want to start this? I don't know how I want to start this. I don't know how I want to talk because we're talking about the loneliness epidemic. So um you have to look at it like when we talk about loneliness, we have to understand that loneliness doesn't always necessarily look like we're crying or that we're suffering from some type of depression, right? It doesn't always look like someone sitting alone in a dark room, okay? Sometimes loneliness looks like a woman who's constantly surrounded by people and still feels invisible. Sometimes it looks like a man who goes to work every day, talks to his coworkers, but comes home, scrolls through thousands of faces, and realizes he hadn't had one meaningful conversation this whole week. Okay. Sometimes it looks like the person who has hundreds of followers, but nobody they feel safe calling at 2 in the morning. Sometimes it looks like the person who says, I'm good, because they don't know how to tell anybody that they're not. And sometimes loneliness looks like being needed by everyone while feeling known by no one. Today, we're going to be talking about the loneliness epidemic. And I want to begin with a question. You know, I love my questions, right? How did we become so connected and still feel alone? Put that out there. How did we become with our social media? Okay. How did we become so connected with everybody all across the world, right? And still end up feeling alone. So, first of all, we want to define what loneliness is. When people hear the word loneliness, they often imagine physical isolation. You're away from everybody. Like someone living alone, someone sitting by themselves. But loneliness is much more complicated than that. You can be alone and not be lonely. And you can be surrounded by people and feel profoundly alone. Because loneliness isn't simply about the number of people around you, it's about the quality of connection you experience. It's the distance between being around people and feeling known by people. Those are not the same thing. The most lonely place may be inside a crowd, right? Think about the last time you were surrounded by people and still felt disconnected. Maybe you were at work, at a family gathering, at a party, a church, at a conference, at a restaurant, at any event. Everyone was talking, everybody was laughing, everyone seemed engaged, and yet something inside you whispered, nobody here really knows me. That's a particular, that is a very particular kind of loneliness because physical isolation can be obvious. Emotional isolation can hide in plain sight. Isn't that something? We are living through a connection paradise. Paradox. We have technology that allows us, like we're doing right now, to communicate instantly with people across the world. We can video chat, text message, comment, like, we can follow, subscribe, and we can share. We can watch someone else's life unfold in real time. We can know what someone ate for breakfast, where they traveled, where they bought, what they believe, what they're angry about, and what they want us, right, to think their life looks like, right? But knowing information about someone isn't the same as knowing them directly, right? Or intimately, right? And being visible isn't the same as being seen. That's the paradox. We have unprecedented access to people without necessarily having unprecedented intimacy with those same people, right? We let's think about like the entertainers, the movie stars. You know, we'll spend is millions of us will come to these pages and watch in fascination of all these people doing all this stuff, right? But we don't know those personally. So when the camera's off, right, we don't know what's going on because we no longer have access to those people, right? So we have to take that into consideration when we talk about our loneliness. When the cameras are off, what is going on in your world, right? Are you truly lonely? Okay. What's really going on with you when you're not in front of the camera, when you're not putting on a production? Who are you? And that's what happens a lot of times. We don't know. Okay. Now, the difference between contact and connection. Contact is, hey, what's up? Connection is, how are you doing today? Contact is, happy birthday. Connection is, I remember what you told me last year. How are you feeling about that now? Has anything changed? Contact is, we should get together sometime. Connection is, I know you've been having a difficult week. I'm just kind of checking on you. Contact happens constantly. Connection requires more time. It requires attention. It requires vulnerability. It requires consistency. And perhaps most importantly, it requires your presence. So, saying all that, I've gotten exhausted. No, we're exhausted. Okay. And these are layers that are added on to this loneliness epidemic. People are tired, not just physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, socially. And when people are exhausted, connection becomes harder. Okay. You may genuinely want friendship, but you're too tired to make plans. You want a community, but you don't have the energy to keep showing up. You want intimacy, but vulnerability feels like work. You want someone to talk to, but the thought of explaining everything you're going through, it just feels exhausting. So, what happens next? You withdraw. Not because you don't care, because you don't have the capacity. And then withdrawal creates more loneliness. And eventually, the isolation becomes a pattern. Now, let's talk about the performance of being okay. Okay. This is another reason loneliness is difficult to recognize. We've become incredibly good at performing wellness. Okay. I'm blessed. I know you hear that. I'm doing great. Everything happened now. Keep in mind, everything happens for a reason. I'm just so busy right now. And I said it earlier, I got a lot going on. Sometimes those statements can be true, but sometimes they can be used as a shield because admitting I'm lonely can feel much more vulnerable than saying I'm busy. Busy sounds productive, lonely sounds exposed. So we choose being busy, right? So the loneliness of being the strong one. Everybody knows about being the strong one. Everybody knows about being the strong one. Being there for everybody, opening up your arms, and oh, I will help everyone. Yes. So let's talk about people who always are there for everyone else. Who are those people? The dependable ones, the caretakers, the people everybody calls, the problem solvers, the strong ones. People assume that they're fine because they always seem capable. But here's the question: who checks on the person everyone depends on? Let that sit with you because I can guarantee you somebody out here is that person. Somebody is listening to me right now is that person. So, who asks the strong woman, what do you need? Who gives the caregiver a place to be cared for? Who tells the person holding everything together, today you don't have to hold anything? Just, I got it. Sometimes the loneliest person in the room is the person everyone assumes that doesn't need help. The loneliness of self abandonment. So, what are we talking about here? Now, this is where this connects directly to our earlier rooted and rising conversation. So, we've had this conversation already. We've gone down this road before. So, sometimes loneliness is only about other people. Isn't only about other people. Sometimes we've become disconnected from ourselves. Yes, we have. We don't know what we want. We don't know what we feel. We don't know what we need, right? We spend so much time adjusting ourselves to other people's expectations that eventually we become strangers to ourselves. And that creates a very particular loneliness. You can have relationships and still feel alone because you aren't fully present in your own life. So keep that in mind. Wow. When you don't feel safe being yourself. Wow. So, real connection requires some degree of honesty. The word real and honesty. Two words that connect, right? But if you've learned that being yourself comes with consequences, you may start editing yourself. We're good at editing things, right, you guys? You don't tell them what you really think. You don't talk about what you really feeling. You hide the parts you think might be rejected. The other day, I was doing a podcast. I know, I think I was on the radio show, on the Rooted and Rising radio show. And I made this comment. Was it the show? I can't remember. Well, it might have been the show. And I said, I know I'm not liked by everybody. Everybody doesn't have to like me. I get that. And I don't expect for everyone to like me. I don't. I don't go around saying, oh, please like me. Now, when I was younger and didn't understand, and that people pleasing persona that I was carrying on, was holding on to, that people pleasing syndrome that I had, right? I was looking for validation from everybody. Just, just like me. I'll do this for you. I'll stand at the edge of the hill and fall off and a bungee cord hang attached to me for you because I need you to like me. I'm being exaggerating, but that's not what happened. But I'm just saying that's how we do. We sacrifice our time, our efforts, our life to be accepted by other people, right? So we hide behind the parts you think might be rejected. Yes. You become agreeable, pleasant, easy, manageable, and people may genuinely like you, right? But they don't actually know you, okay? Because they only know the version you felt safe enough to present. Wow. Believe it or not, that's loneliness too. Yeah. So now let's talk about needing people. Is there really a fear of needing people? Huh? Let's see. We've also created a culture that sometimes celebrate extreme independence. I don't need anybody. I do everything myself. I don't ask for help. I don't handle my own I can handle my own problems. There's strength in independence. Please do not get that wrong. I am not trying to say don't be independent, because that would be crazy coming from me, and it'd be very contradicting and hypocritical, because I do believe in independence. Okay. But there's also a danger in making self sufficiency your entire identity. And as a Black woman, many of us do that. Many of us validate ourselves through how strong and how independent we are. We'll say it in a heartbeat. I bought my own house. I bought my own car. I got my own job. I got this. I got that. We will definitely attach it to all the materialistic things that we have. We will attach it to all of our achievements, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about our emotional, okay, our inner, right? That needs help, right? Um, Human beings need each other, okay? That's not a weakness, because we do feel, and we have been told, and we have made, or it has been said to us that we have to be able to do things on our own, period. We don't need to be connected to anybody. We say a lot of crazy things that don't make any sense when it comes to human beings, because I'm saying it because I said that I don't need anybody, right? Right? That I can do this on my own. And as a my son was 18 when I finally got married. I was 37. So for 37 years, for 20, for at least 20 something years, I was that person who was the independent person. I didn't have any, I had jobs, I had a house, I had all those things. And I did it for myself, right? I did it because, one, first of all, I was a single parent. So I had to make sure I had everything in place to be a single parent, to take care of everything. So yeah, I did that, right? And even as a married woman, I did that. I still felt the need that I had to take care of myself in a sense. And when I say that, I mean keep being consistent on all the things that I was doing to make sure everybody, because now I'm in a process, or I'm in a whole nother genre where I'm taking care of, not making sure, my son has everything. I had, make sure that my husband had everything. And I'm not saying he didn't work or nothing. I'm saying just being the maintainer, being the person who always do the caregiving, taking care of this, doing that. So you do all those things as a wife. Okay. Anyway, so it wasn't a something that I thought about at the last minute. It wasn't something to say, oh, do I need to know how to do that? I was already in the mode. I was already there. I was already in the survival mode. I was already there doing all those things. So it wasn't anything different than what I was already doing. So I just continued doing those things, right? But we do understand we do need other human beings. So the independent thing could not work. It didn't work anymore. It just didn't work, right? So that's not a weakness, okay? That's biology. That's community. That's humanity, right? The goal isn't to become so independent that you never need anyone. The goal is to develop relationships where needing someone doesn't feel like losing yourself, because we have equated that together. And because we put it together, this is what happens with how we see ourselves, right? If I let somebody in, if I say I need help, then I'm weak, because we've been taught this independence, right? And when I was saying about being an independent woman, being a strong woman, as now not only as a mother, but also as a wife, that was like more. And it did, you got to remember, it only works to a certain extent. And it only works in certain situations, in certain circumstances, that we have to be this strong woman, even though you have a whole partner. It kills me when people say, oh, but you have a husband. And I asked him, so what does that mean when you say that? You have another person. Okay, so what does that mean? When you say that to somebody, what does that mean? That some people say, well, that's because he's supposed to step in and do this and do that and do this and do that. But you don't know the circumstances. You don't know the circumstances. Again, we see stuff, right? It's in our face, but you don't know the circumstances, right? You don't know what happened. So, am I supposed to take my independence and put it in my back pocket? And or should I still continue doing things that creates the independence or that helps, you know, me being that strong woman? Okay? So just keep that in mind when you hear someone tell you that. Well, you got a husband, you got a boyfriend. So you're still not supposed to take care of yourself because you have these things or these people in your life? You're supposed to still take care of yourself. So keep that in mind. So, um, and the goal is to develop relationships. And this is not even about that. I was just using it as an example. This goes with all relationships. I just use that as an example because it's so prevalent. People say that all the time, and I never could figure that out. Why you say that? And maybe it's just me. Maybe somebody can tell me. Maybe can tell me, well, what does that mean? And the reason why people say that, da 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 da, maybe I don't know. But it just never was a question. It was kind of those questions that, well, okay, so that's the answer I would get to that one. So, what does that mean? I got a dog. So what does that mean? I don't know. And I guess maybe it's a conversation you're having that comes up. I guess I don't know. Okay, so the goal isn't to become so independent that you never need anyone. Yes, the goal is to develop relationships where needing someone doesn't feel like losing yourself because you've been so strong and you've been holding it down for so long. And somebody comes along and sweep you off your feet, but now you're like hesitating, like, wait a minute. But I've been always doing that for myself. I feel like if I let you do it, then I'm gonna get lost in the shuffle, and I don't want to. I want to always be solid. We do that, right? So we have to pay attention to that. So why do people stop reaching out? So sometimes people stop reaching out because they feel like they're always the one doing it. Ooh, ooh, wow. The next text first. They text first. They call first. They make the plans. They check in. They remember birthdays and ask how people are doing. Eventually, they get tired because it's a one-way situation going on. A one-way situation going on. And they think, if I stop, will anyone notice? So they stop. And sometimes nobody noticed. And that hurts because it confirms the fear. Maybe I wasn't as important to them as they were to me. That can make a person withdraw even further. I'm not going to call, I'm not going to deal, I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to leave it as it is, right? Oh, wow. Okay. I'm sorry. So let's talk about the digital connection. It can help and it can also hurt because this is a digital connection we have going on here right now. Okay. And And I want you to understand, I'm not demonizing technology, because I swear I use technology constantly. And I'm always learning how much more I can use it. I'm just telling you, I use it constantly. Social media can connect people. Online communities can be meaningful, right? People find friendship, support, education, belonging online every day, right? But digital connection can also create the illusion of intimacy. Hmm. You see people constantly. You know what they're doing. You may even interact with them every day, right? But none of that guarantees genuine emotional connection, because that's what we're seeking. A heart emoji isn't the same as sitting beside someone while they're crying. A comment isn't always a conversation. A follower isn't necessarily a friend. And being watched isn't the same as being known. So, do you see how all of that connects, right? Now, let's talk about the comparison problem, or the comparison problem. What are we comparing this to? So, social media also often gives us access to everyone else's highlights while we're experiencing our own lives in real time. I think of, and I said it earlier, I think of all the different entertainers and those movie stars that have Facebook pages, that have Instagrams, that have what's the other one? Facebook, TikToks, and all that. Like for instance, I follow Eric Benet on Facebook. Okay. Um Again, that's what they show us on the side. We don't know what's going on the other. We just get fascinated by. I love his music, and that's the only reason why I'm following. It has nothing to do with anything else. I love his music, and so we get, oh my God, starstruck, right? About what they show us. Okay, what they show us on video, on the screen. We see friendships, we see couples, family vacations, celebration, group dinners. They show us them outside, out at on restaurants, birthdays. We see baby showers, and then career milestones. We see all of that, right? And if we're already lonely, we may interpret those images as evidence that everyone else belongs somewhere except us, because we find it, we feel like this is all theirs. That has nothing to do with me. I'm just fascinated by what they're doing. I'm excited. Somebody just had a baby. Rihanna, oh, friends, Rihanna just had a baby. You know, we're watching the kids grow up and they're in front of the camera and all this. And then we sit back and wonder, like, man, I don't have a husband. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have a baby. So we sit there and we think, right? And we keep this going on, and it doesn't make it better. It makes it worse for us, right? We don't see the loneliness behind the scenes, right? We don't see the arguments before the photograph. Say it's a beautiful photograph, a portrait of them sitting on a bench, out on a picnic, at some type of celebration, and it just, you don't know what happened prior to that picture because you're not privy to that. You're only privy to the things that they show us, period, right? So we don't see the arguments before the photograph. We don't see the person who went home from the party and cried, right? We see the image, then compare it to our internal reality. And our loneliness gets deeper. Do you see how that can happen? Loneliness changes how we see the world, okay? This is important here. When loneliness becomes prolonged, we can begin interpreting the world through it. A delayed text becomes they don't care. An invitation that doesn't come becomes nobody wants me around. Someone being busy becomes I'm not important. I don't, I guess those those comments I wouldn't see it like that, because let me say this, and this is for people who don't have friendships. I have friendships, so I guess I need to step out of this one, because when you have friendships, all of those things I can understand, so I don't feel left out. And the thing is, I get invited. Majority of the time I say no. So that's not the fault of anybody not making me feel important. That's the fault of me saying no. Okay. So we have to look at that too. Even though we're talking about how it starts to make us feel, I have to look at it from the standpoint, if I'm telling people no, why am I telling people no? Right? Okay. The idea that you feel that nobody wants me around, somebody being busy, I'm not important. We start expecting rejection on everything. We become more sensitive to exclusion. We may withdraw before anyone has the opportunity to hurt us. So we already got our shield up. Whoop, close it up. I don't want to deal with anybody. And that's not the reason why. Most of the time I'm doing something. So lots of times I don't get to go because I'm actually doing something. Like sometimes I'm doing this show, sometimes I'm doing my other shows. And to me, um, those are important. So I do understand what importance when it comes to things. And it's also important for me to engage with other people. Okay, I get that. And then our withdrawal becomes evidence that no one wants us. And that's the loneliest loop. So now you're in a loop. You're feeling rejected. No matter what you're doing, you're feeling rejected. Nobody wants you. Nobody thinks you're important. When reality is that's not true. And sometimes we are lonely, right? Because we are afraid of connection. The fear of connection. This is one of the hardest truths we do not like to talk about, right? We want connection and simultaneously fear it, because connection requires vulnerability. It means being seen, being seen. It means letting someone know you care. It means risking disappointment. It means saying, I missed you. I need you. And that really hurt me. Can we talk? I'm not doing okay. Those statements create openings, and openings create risk. So sometimes we protect ourselves from loneliness by protecting ourselves from intimacy. Why? I don't know, but we do. And then we wonder why, see? And then we wonder why we feel alone. You're either gonna do something or you're not. You're either gonna be part of something or you're not. I mean, that's just how it works. And it's not about you making the decision and somebody forcing you. It's all up to you. It's whatever you want. That's what it is. It's going to always be whatever you want. It's not about everybody else's decision about what you want. It's what you want. So what happens to a society that is lonely? What happens now? Now we're going to come out of the internal and go to the external. So, what happens when loneliness becomes widespread? We may become less trusting, more defensive, more suspicious, more reactive, more dependent on online validation. Wow. More vulnerable to manipulation, more disconnected from our communities. When people don't feel connected to one another, it becomes easier to believe nobody cares about people like me. Wow. And once people stop believing they belong to one another, something important begins to break. Community used to be closer to home. Now, I'm going to be a little bit careful here. The past wasn't perfect. People have always experienced some sort of loneliness. Communities have always excluded people. Families have always been dysfunctional. But many people historically have a more built-in opportunities for repeated social contact. Neighbors, extended families, clubs, civic organizations, community groups, local businesses, workplaces, share activities, places where people encounter the same people repeatedly. Repeated contact matters. You began recognizing people, then greeting people, then talking to people, then knowing something about them. That's how community grows. It doesn't usually happen instantly, it happens through repetition. So if you find yourself, remember earlier we talked about of churches, schools, and different areas that you go all the time and you feel lonely? Well, now we're talking about being in these spaces and actually interacting with these people, right? And you do it on a daily basis, or you're doing it over and over again. Every Wednesday, you repeatedly go to some type of Bible study, for instance. I'm using that. Or you're going to a women's meeting. You do this every Wednesday. So this is a repeated activity. So this is how you know people. This is how you grow people, right? Because now you're interacting with these people all the time. So whenever, like, if you meet every Wednesday and then you do another activity and those same people are there. So you're constantly in the presence of these people. So you're talking to these people. You're interacting with these people. So you become familiar with these people. That's connection. That's the connection you're looking for. Okay. We have lost some of our third places. So what are we talking about third places? Home is one place. Work is the other place. But people also need places where they simply belong. They just belong. A library, okay? A community center, a neighborhood gathering, a coffee shop, a park, local organization, a creative space, a volunteer group, somewhere where you don't have to be a consumer to have a reason to exist. You don't have to do anything. You're there, you're enjoying yourself, you're talking to people. All those things are important that you can do so that you will be able to interact with other people. And this is somewhere that you can just simply be, just be there. And when those spaces disappear or become inaccessible, we lose opportunities for what? The organic connection. And people increasingly retreat into private lives. Yes, we just go home. I'll watch a little television, some Law and Order, right? Investigative Discovery, maybe some Amazon Prime videos, maybe some Netflix. Netflix is stuff, you know. I ain't got to talk to nobody. I get a good book and read a book. And we play it off. We play it off very well that we're so good with being alone. When all we do want that organic connection. We just figure out that, it may look up like we're weak, vulnerable, exposed. We don't want all that to happen. So we'll just stay to ourselves. Right? Am I right? Okay. Um, so the economics of loneliness. The economics of loneliness. Loneliness has a lot going on, right? So there's another part of this conversation we don't always discuss. Connection takes time, and time is not distributed equally, first and foremost. People are working multiple jobs now, commuting, caring for children, caring for aging parents, managing financial stress, trying to maintain a household, trying to what? Survive. When you're constantly worried about money, social connection can become another thing you feel you can't afford. You may want to go out, but there's the cost. You may want to travel to see family, but there's the gas. You may want to join something, but there's the membership. You may want to take a break, but there's what? Work. Loneliness doesn't exist outside the economic reality. Sometimes people don't need another lecture about making friends. They need a society that gives them enough breathing room to actually have a life. Wow, that's deep. The loneliness of modern success. Love this, love this, love this. We've also created another strange contradiction. We can be successful and lonely. We can be educated and lonely. We can have money and lonely. We can have a family and lonely. We can be admired and lonely. Because external success cannot automatically provide emotional connection or emotional intimacy. You can build an impressive life and still have nobody you feel safe enough to call when the performance ends. Think about that. So, what do we do? And I want you to get to the point where I don't want to end what we're talking about um, by saying go make friends. Just go out there and make a whole bunch of friends. No, I don't want to say that. I don't want you to get the impression that's what I'm trying to teach you because I don't. I don't want or try to tell you to do. That's too simplistic. Instead, I want us to think about rebuilding connection intentionally. It starts smaller than you think. Learn someone's name. Call instead of commenting. Invite someone for coffee. Check on the person who's always checking on you. Tell someone you miss them. I did that today. I actually did that today. Ask a deeper question. Put away your phone while someone is talking to you. Do we do that? Or do we sit and be fumbling through our phone while somebody's having a conversation? When we go out to eat with our friends or with a friend, do you, while you're waiting for your drink or your food, do you sit there and scroll through your phone? No conversation with that person. You're scrolling, and when your phone, and then when your food comes, that's when you have conversation. I've seen that happen a lot. I'm trying to figure out, do I do that? I might do that. I don't know. I hope I don't. But yeah, that's a possibility. Join something that meets regularly. Remember, we talked about repetition. Become a regular somewhere, right? Volunteer, create, teach, listen, and perhaps most importantly, allow yourself to be known unless you're trying to hide something. Okay? You can do this by starting with one real conversation. You don't need 50 friends. You may need one honest conversation. One person who knows the difference between I'm okay and I'm really okay. One person you can sit beside without performing. One person who doesn't require to be impressive. One person who can handle your truth. And perhaps one person from whom you can do the same. This is not rocket science, okay? You don't have to be a scientist or a rocket science, yeah, a rocket science to actually do these simple things to combat your loneliness. The question we should ask, maybe instead of asking, why are people so lonely? We should be asking, what have we built that makes I said genuine, I meant to say genuine connection so difficult? Let me give you that question again. What have we built that makes a genuine connection so difficult? That's the bigger question. Because if loneliness is widespread, we shouldn't automatically assume millions of individuals are failing at friendship. Doesn't make any sense. Maybe some of our social structures have changed. Maybe work has changed. Family structures have changed. Technology has changed. The way we communicate has changed. The economy has changed. Our expectations have changed. And perhaps our emotional lives are trying to catch up with a world that moves faster than human connection can naturally do or develop. So, tonight, I want you to ask yourself something. Not how many people do I know? Ask who knows me? Who really knows me? Who knows when I'm pretending? Who knows what I'm afraid of? Who knows what you're excited about? Who knows what you're grieving? Who knows what you're trying to become? Who could sit beside you without requiring you to perform? And then ask yourself another question. Do I allow people to know me, or only the version of me I think they'll accept? Wow. That one may require some honesty. That last question, I want to say that again. Do I allow people to know me, or only the version of me I think they'll accept? Wow. Now, let's talk about the mirror. No, let's not. Let's not talk about the mirror, because this is a different version of what I want to talk about. So, reclaiming our capacity for connection. Maybe the answer to loneliness epidemic isn't another app. Maybe it's not another social media network. Maybe it's not another platform designed to keep us connected 24 hours a day. Maybe we need something much more ordinary. People sitting together, talking, listening, laughing, helping, creating, sharing food, checking on neighbors, calling family, making friends slowly, just being present, building trust through what? Repetition. Remembering that community isn't something we download, it's something we practice. So, I want to leave you with this. You can have access to the entire world and still need one person sitting beside you. You can have 100 of notifications and still need someone to ask, how are you really doing? You can be surrounded by people and still be waiting for someone to see you. So perhaps the answer isn't becoming more socially visible. Perhaps it's becoming more emotionally available to ourselves and to one another. Because loneliness isn't always absent of people. Sometimes it's the absence of meaningful connection. And maybe the first step toward changing that isn't waiting for someone to find us. Maybe it's deciding to become the kind of person who reaches, who listens, who notices, who remembers, who says, hey, come over here, you can sit with me. Maybe that's how we began rebuilding. Not the entire country, not every community, not every broken relationship, just one connection, then another, then another. Because a lonely society doesn't become connected overnight. It happens person by person, conversation by conversation, neighbor by neighbor, relationship by relationship. And perhaps that's why we're having these conversations. Because before we can change what is happening around us, we have to be willing to look at how it is affecting us. So here's today's question. Am I surrounded by people or am I truly connected to people? And then ask yourself, what is what is one genuine connection I am willing to nurture instead of simply waiting for connection to find me? So if there's somebody you already know you would like to have a conversation about or you're interested in talking to, instead of you waiting for them to come to you, because they probably don't know that you're actually interested in having a conversation with them, you reach out to them and talk to them. Don't make it complicated because it's not. Call someone, invite someone, listen to someone, tell someone the truth. Let someone know you were thinking about them. And if you're the person who has been waiting for somebody to reach out, perhaps today could be the day that you tell someone, I don't need you to fix anything. You, I just want to be alone with this. That's humility. excuse me, that's not weakness. Okay, that's humanity. That is the human side of us. So I just, I think when we look at how we visualize loneliness and how, we can quickly say, I'm not lonely. I think a lot of times it is a shield. I think it's a barrier. When real deep inside, because we make loneliness seems like it's a vulnerability that we don't want everybody in, we will sit around and we will be lonely. And some of us get angry because we're lonely, because we don't know how to communicate. So we get angry because we don't know how to communicate. And we don't want to look weak. And again, we don't want to be vulnerable. So instead, we just sit in silence. We sit in isolation. We don't talk to other people. We don't interact with people. But we interact on the internet. We talk to people, but I'm saying come to a place where you can sit down and have a conversation with someone. Interesting conversation. Everybody wants to feel like they belong somewhere. Everybody does. There's nobody, I don't care how hardcore people be, they don't, they're human. Okay, they're not robots. They're real people. So we know there's a lot of lonely people out there. Lonely by the definition of what we just discussed. So I want to leave that with you. I hope you go back and watch us again. You can watch us here on AOC, and you can also watch us on YouTube. This conversation was taken from my Rooted and Rising Substack conversation. And I thought it was interesting to bring it to you guys at a time like this when all this is going on. You guys remember now, not only is everything going on externally, there's a lot of stuff going on internally. And we got all these holidays getting ready to spin around. So all of this is going to be brought up again. We're going to talk. I don't know if it was last year, we talked about the different syndromes that happen during the holidays. So we're going to be talking about all of that. That's going to be coming up, and it can connect to what we've been talking about right here. So it'll be a full circle. Remember, it said earlier about the loneliness loop. I talked about the loneliness loop. This could be part of it when the holidays come around. Okay. So think about that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to watch the Empower Her talk show here on AOC. Again, I want to thank AOC for this great opportunity. I want to thank LUS. I want to thank Cox Cable, and I definitely want to thank the 6 surrounding parishes again. Thank you guys. I want you guys to have a great night. Have a great weekend, and I will see you back here again next Thursday at 7 p.m. And good night.